Welcome to Lunch with the Lord. I'm Pastor Mark. We're in Judges. We're going to be starting in chapter 15 this lesson. But before we begin, Jeremiah 15:16, Thy words were found, and I did eat them, and thy word was unto me the joy and the rejoicing of my heart. Now, as we begin chapter 15, last lesson we saw that Samson got angry with his betrothed wife and stormed off and went home. And we're not sure if he consummated the marriage or not, but he was angry with her, and he goes and gets those garments for those 30 men, and then he storms off home. Now we're getting into chapter 15, and let's read verses 1 and 2. And it says here, But it came to pass within a while after, in the time of wheat harvest, that Samson visited his wife with a kid. And he said, I will go into my wife, into the chamber, but her father would not allow him in. And her father said, I truly thought that you had utterly hated her, therefore I gave her to your companion. Is not her younger sister fairer than she? Take her, I pray thee, instead of her. Now, some time now has passed between basically the end of chapter 14 and the beginning of chapter 15. And Samson now has cooled down from his anger against his wife. Although he was not really at fault, and wasn't really expected to make the first step towards reconciliation. Yet, to his credit, he actually does take the first step. Now, in Matthew chapter 5, verses 23 and 24, Jesus said that if a brother or a sister in Christ has anything against you, then it is your responsibility to go to them and to be reconciled to them. If we wait for them to do it, it may never happen. I mean, they're the ones, they have something against you, so more than likely, because they're angry with you, they're not going to be the one to do the reconciliation. So Jesus said it's our responsibility to go and be reconciled to someone whom we know, or at least we may think we know, has something against us. Now, and this is what Samson did. Samson was angry with her because she made the mistake and she betrayed him. In verse 1, it says that he goes during the time of wheat harvest, which would be around the month of May. Now, this is why the Philistines were angry with Samson in verse 5. Because they were getting ready to harvest the crops. Samson takes a kid as a present for reconciliation. A kid was also given to Tamar by Judah in Genesis chapter 38, verse 17. Samson wants to go in to see his wife in her chamber, in her father's house. Since it seems that Samson did not consummate the marriage at the wedding, is this what he wants to do now? Is it possible that, because he wants to go and he brings this kid, that he wants to consummate the marriage now? Or does he just want to go and to restart their relationship by sitting down and talking with her again? Again, we don't know what it means when it says he wants to go into the chamber, into my wife. Again, when it says to his wife, it means consummation, but doesn't necessarily mean that that's what this happened here in this instance. But the father stops him. Samson could easily have pushed the father out of the way but he showed restraint and patience, and he heard what the father had to say. The father honestly thought that Samson was finally done with his daughter because of his anger. So he betrothed her to the other man. Some commentators think it was the best man that was given to him, which was a Philistine of the 30 men. She was only betrothed to him because the reason why we know she was only betrothed to this Philistine was because she was still living in her father's house. The father thought that maybe he could get possibly a second dowry, but he should have returned Samson's father's dowry first. Instead of giving the dowry back, he would offer the younger sister to him, to Samson, so he could possibly keep both dowries. Now, whatever the truth is, Samson was very angry again, and he was not willing to accept this option. Although Samson doesn't realize it, God is having his way in stopping Samson from being married to this Philistine woman, and in getting him to go against the Philistines. So again, Samson thinks he's in control. He thinks he's, I'm going to go on down. We had the weak wedding. I didn't consummate the marriage, but I'm going to go back now and I'm going to see what we can do as far as getting this wedding back on track. Well, God's not having it. Nope. God's going to put his hand in the mix here, and he's going to separate, make sure Samson gets nice and angry again, and does what he's supposed to do. What Samson's supposed to do is to war against the Philistines, not marry them. Samson's anger is pointed now in the right direction. It's pointed towards the Philistines. When a Christian's heart is being drawn to something of this world that will lead to danger, God may use harsh measures to break up this union. See, people get, they get these ideas of I'm gonna do this or I'm gonna do that in the world, and they don't realize that their life is going towards the world more and more. They're falling in love with the things of this world more and more. God has to bring situations in life to break up that possible marriage with the world. Always remember, it is from God's great love for this person who's going towards the world that he does it. God loved Samson, and he didn't want Samson to marry this Philistine. You can look at God and say because of his anger or whatever, disappointed in me, well, he doesn't like me. No. It's God, because of God's love and his mercy, that he's breaking up this marriage. And it's because of God's love for you that he doesn't want you to fall in love with the things of this world. Let's read verses 3 through 5. And Samson said concerning them, now shall I be more blameless than the Philistines, though I do them a displeasure. And Samson went and he caught 300 foxes and took firebrands and turned tail to tail. And he put a firebrand in the midst between two tails. And when he had set the brands on fire, he let them go into the standing corn of the Philistines. And he burnt off both the shocks and also the standing corn with the vineyards and olive yards. Now, Samson may have taken what was done to him as, in a sense, as the Philistines showing disrespect and contempt against a Jewish person. Samson would validate God's call on him to be a judge by avenging any disrespect done to him and also against the rest of the nation of Israel. So what Samson's getting angry here, and he's possibly not only taking this personally, but he's possibly taking it as, you Philistines, you're mistreating me, but I represent the Jewish nation. You're not only mistreating me, but you guys are our oppressors, and your guys seem to be having too much fun oppressing us. So I'm going to avenge not only myself, but also carry on my back the nation of Israel and avenge the nation of Israel. Samson is seeing the father as a representative of all the Philistines. To Samson, what the father did was typical of how the Philistines treated people, especially Jews. Samson decides to take out his anger to some degree, by crippling the food supply of the Philistines. He catches 300 foxes, or some commentators think it's jackals, and he wisely ties their tails together, and he puts a torch between their tails and basically I think he did it. Now, he just doesn't randomly sets them loose, but I think he purposely, systematically sets them loose in different fields. Because it is harvest time, this means two things. Number one, that the weather would be pretty much dry, and the corn and the wheat and the vineyards would go up in flames easily and very thoroughly also. Number two, that the Philistine storage supplies of food would be getting low from not harvesting anything during the winter months. Therefore, they need this food that is in the fields. Now, how many acres were burned and how much of the Philistines' population was actually affected by this is not known. But it was enough to make them very angry, and especially when it was done by an Israelite. Now let's read verse 6, and we'll finish this lesson in verse 6. And it says, "Then the Philistines said, 'Who has done this?' And they answered, 'Well, Samson, the son-in-law of the Timnite, because he has taken his wife and given her to his companion.' And the Philistines came up, and they burnt her and her father with fire." Now, the Philistines retaliate by doing something that will both hurt Samson and also appease their anger. Samson's wife and father were the main reason why Samson got angry and burned their fields. So the Philistines decide to burn her and her father in the house. This is what the 30 companions threatened to do back in chapter 14 and verse 15. Listen, I said in that lesson, she was afraid. When they threatened her and said, "You better tell us what the riddle means, or else we're going to burn you and your father's house," they meant it. And she knew they meant it. And they actually now they do it. Probably a number of the fields that were burned belonged to some of those 30 companions that were given to him at his wedding. This would mean that the very men that Samson's wife helped to get the riddle were the same ones that eventually came and burned her and her father anyway. So here in one chapter, she's helping these 30 men. In the next chapter, they're burning her and her father in the house. All right, we're going to continue in verse 7 next lesson. But until then, walk with the Lord. I know he walks with you.